Welcome! In this video, I'm going to show you what options you have available when setting up spawns on your map, as well as give you some tips on how you should place them. Keep in mind that these spawn tips only apply to general maps, which are maps that are designed for use with most or all game types. The first thing I'm going to do is place general spawns on my map. This is done using respawn points. Respawn points are locations in your map where the player is allowed to potentially respawn after being killed. Players can only spawn on the places you designate and nowhere else. The game uses a mathematical system behind the scenes to calculate where would be a good place to respawn a player. Besides the developers, no one knows 100% exactly how it works, but I believe it goes something like this. To start off, all spawn points on the map have a number value assigned to them, but the value for each individual spawn point changes constantly depending on what's going on in the map. At the precise moment of respawn, the game will try to spawn you at one of the spawn points with the highest influence on the map. By default, all spawn points have equal influence. At any given time, spawn points that are within a certain range of teammates or friendly objectives will gain weak positive influence, while spawn points within a certain range of enemies, enemy objectives, or neutral objectives will have a medium negative influence. Also, spawn points within a certain range of a spot where you or a teammate recently died in the last 15 seconds have a medium negative influence. Bungie has confirmed that there is some slight randomness to it, but at least now you have a general idea. Good places to put respawn points are in corners where the player will have their back to the wall. Try not to put spawn points in the middle of an open area or in areas where they can get sniped as soon as they spawn. A good policy to hold is to put them in places where the enemy is unlikely to see them spawn. Put spawn points in safe areas, preferably nearby some cover. Try to put down as many as you can. The more you can put down, the harder it will be for skilled players to accurately predict where their enemies are respawning after killing them. Make sure your spawn points are faced correctly. Typically, the first thing a player is going to do right after spawning is run forward or backward. Try to make sure your player is looking in towards the map so they can quickly figure out where they are and decide where to go from there. Also, try not to put spawn points directly next to the edge of a platform. It's going to take your player a second to figure out where they are, and you don't want them accidentally falling to their death. Don't face your spawn points towards a wall. It will annoy your players to have to turn around after respawning. Also, try not to spawn your players with a vehicle right up in their face. You can use respawn zones to further influence where your players will respawn. There are 3 types of respawn zones: weak, regular, and anti. Spawn points that are within a weak respawn zone will gain a weak positive influence, equal to a nearby friendly teammate. If you set the zone to belong to a certain team, you can use this tool to have the game mostly spawn players in this area, but if this area becomes dangerous, they'll spawn somewhere else. Spawn points that are within a regular respawn zone will be given such an incredibly high positive influence that it will be impossible for the assigned team to spawn outside of this area. Although this tool gives you more control over where your players will spawn, it also makes it easier for players to guess where enemies are. Use this tool when you don't want spawns to shuffle around, and you want the team to spawn in this area only. Anti-respawn zones have the same effect on spawn points as weak respawn zones, but will give the affected spawn point a negative influence instead of positive. You can use this tool to allow teams to spawn anywhere else on the map except here, but still allow them to spawn here if there is really no other good place in the map to spawn. This is an initial spawn. This is a spawn point that serves as the starting location for a player. A player will spawn here at the beginning of the game, but it is not a respawn point. Once the game has started, players will never respawn at this spawn point. You can set the initial spawn to belong to a certain team only, and the game will let only players from that team use it. You can set most objects to belong to a certain team, but some objects are unaffected by this, such as weapons or vehicles. You can also set a priority for your object by changing the spawn sequence. If there are fewer players on a team than there are initial spawns, the game will spawn players starting with the initial spawn with the highest spawn sequence. If it's a tie, the tied initial spawns will be randomly chosen. If there are more players on a team than there are initial spawns, it's okay. Nearby respawn points will be used for extra players. In most cases, it's really only necessary to put one initial spawn in each team's base. The first player to connect to the match will spawn at this starting location, and now that there is a nearby teammate, the rest of the team will spawn with them. Put an initial loadout camera on your map to give your players a quick preview of your map at the beginning of the game. When a round is beginning, the game will use that camera angle as the background while your players choose a loadout. If your map only uses a portion of Forge World, keep players from wandering off by creating a safe area. There are two types of safe areas: soft safe areas and hard safe areas. With either one, you can engulf your map within the boundary of the safe area to keep players from getting out of your map. The difference between these two items is that a soft safe area will give the player a 10-second warning that they will die if they don't turn back. In almost all cases, I recommend using a soft safe area instead of a hard safe area, which will kill them immediately with no warning if they cross the invisible line. One of the golden rules of creating a good quality map is to never punish the player for exploration. A player that is killed by a hard safe zone will feel like they were killed unfairly and will frown on your map. Kill areas are simple. Any player inside the boundary of a kill zone will die. Once again, soft kill zones will warn the player to get out. Hard kill zones will kill your player instantly. Use kill zones to patch up sections of your map that you don't want players to get into. Good examples are on these little ledges on the corners of my map. Remember, never punish the player for exploration. This area is out of bounds, but I'm going to use a soft safe zone, because it will not be immediately clear to the player that this is off limits. If a player is getting shot and uses jetpack to escape behind this wall, they should not be killed immediately, because that's unfair. How are they supposed to know it's off limits? Let your player be allowed to go there for a moment, but force them back out shortly. Killing the player without warning is not cool. Most players do understand that in maps that are floating in the air, if they fall off the map, they'll die. With that assumption, it's usually okay to put a hard kill zone under your map. Don't put kill zones on top of structures that are within the boundaries of your map. It ruins the jetpack ability. Make sure your map is compatible in games where jetpack is a selectable loadout. This concludes my tutorial tips for spawning. By watching this video, you have gained experience in your skill to make a proper multiplayer map. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to rate this video.